my Powerful Women Growth Group, and I'm actually super excited because for the very first time on my podcast, I am interviewing. This was my plan for 2024, was to actually begin to pull in interviews. So Angela, you get to be the very first one.
Yay!
Yes! So, and this is Angela Tucker. So Angela, give us first like the 30-second to a minute who you are, what you do, and then we're gonna dive in.
Okay. My name is Angela Tucker. I am a realtor in the DFW area. I love helping everyone find their homes and all the things that go with that. Buying, selling, everything in between. It's really nice to be able to see people through all the different transactions. A lot of people will come to me for their first home and then they come back when they're ready to move up, or I'm helping their parents or siblings, and so that's really nice. I also just recently started a plumbing company. My partner has been in plumbing for over 30 years, so that's been a fun adventure. And
I can imagine that it has been.
It's been great because it goes hand in hand with what I do. So all of my real estate friends and everyone needs him. So that's excellent.
That works really well. It's almost like you have an organic lead gen machine for the plumbing company.
Yeah,
anyway.
It just happened organically, and that was just an opportunity that came up, and we said yes. So.
Awesome. So now I met you when you were already doing real estate, but when we were preparing for this, I had asked you, like, what are you passionate about? So share with the people who are listening and the ones who will watch as well, like, what is your passion?
My main passion is helping others. So you'll hear a little bit about my story here in a little bit, but I love encouraging and inspiring other people. I've been through a lot in life that has, been a lot of obstacles that have got in the way, where most people, statistics and everything else says I shouldn't be where I'm at today. So I just want to encourage other people, no matter what you're going through in life, there's always hope, and to never give up, to just keep going, right? And you can use those things that have happened to you in life as your fuel, right? And it makes you stronger and it makes you resilient. So all these things that should have, kept me down, I just used as building blocks to get to the next part.
Okay, so there's some words there that you said that I think are important. Makes you stronger, and I love the word resilience. Do you all love that? I love the word resilience. Okay, so I'm just curious, because for those of you who are going to watch this, we actually have an audience because it's here for my PWGG group. What does the word resilience mean to you all? Like, what comes to mind when you think about resilient or resilience?
The phoenix rising from the ashes.
Okay, so the phoenix rising from the ashes. Anybody else? What's resilience?
Not quitting.
Not quitting. Okay. Anybody else?
Strength.
Strength, which you said, strong and resilient. Now, you did a great job of kind of teasing that there's some history.
A little bit of history
from your life that has brought you to this place of strength and resilience. So kind of give us, a little bit of your story, that obviously, and we'll kind of, I'm sure, stop in between, but, not necessarily start from the very beginning, but kind of go back to the beginning of what's brought you to being strong and resilient.
Okay, well, this is the hard part, because there's so many layers to everyone's story, right? So it's like, what parts do you share? What do you, Anyways, we'll just kind of start back to when I was a teenager. This is kind of when things went wild in my life, right? So I had a pretty somewhat normal childhood, grew up in Plano, and then my family moved to Wiley when I was in junior high. And then my parents split up. They got divorced, and I was left the house to myself because my mom moved to Oklahoma and my dad moved to another house that we had. So I started partying all the time. I wasn't making good choices. I felt really abandoned by my mom, and literally just not going to school, drinking, hanging out with my friends.
Wait, are you saying you were living by yourself?
I was 16 or 17, somewhere in there.
By yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
So
keep going.
I wasn't making the good choices that I should have made. I wasn't going to school. I wasn't doing the things, but I was hurt. I felt abandoned, like I said, and that's how I coped with it. So I just kind of went down this crazy spiral rabbit hole of making bad decisions, not really ever thinking about my future, because when you're that age, you don't think about your future. When I was that age, that happened, and then I got in a lot of trouble. Well, I got kicked out of school first because I was truant, right? So I actually went to move to Oklahoma for a minute, and I came back, and they're like, you can't come back because you're going to be truant. You're going to have to pay all these fines, and we're going to court order you to get your GD. So you can just go and do that. So I did that, but then I'm like, now I don't have school. What am I going to do with my life? So my partying continued, and I got in trouble. I used a girl's credit card with my boyfriend, and I got my first felony at the age of 17.
Wow.
So just, again, not thinking about my future, whatever. Well, I didn't stop there. I wasn't like, oh, I'm changed now because I got in this trouble.
Okay.
I was on probation, but I still kept doing dumb things, just kind of like smarter to not get in trouble until I got in trouble again. But then in that time, I got pregnant with my daughter. So I got pregnant with my daughter at 18. I quit doing dumb things, but I had already gotten in trouble. It just hadn't caught up with me again, right?
Okay.
So I got my second felony, and that was, so my first one was debit card abuse. The other one was like shoplifting. Actually, it was switched. The first one was like shoplifting over $1,500 because when I moved to Oklahoma, this guy burned all my clothes. It was a whole thing. So I just went in when I'm taking a bunch of Xanax and not thinking clearly, and I just get these clothes again, like from the store, and I don't pay for them. So that was shoplifting over $1,500. That was my first felony. Then the second felony was using that girl's debit card.
Okay.
And that didn't catch up with me until I was pregnant with my daughter, right? So I had already quit. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, well, that was my saving grace. That was God that sent me my angel because I needed that. There probably wasn't anything else that would have changed me at that point. So I stopped doing dumb things, but that stuff caught up to me. So I was literally in jail in Collin County from the time I was 5 months to 8 months pregnant, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna get out.
Wow.
Because I couldn't get out. I couldn't be bonded out. I was already in trouble for a felony, and I got another felony. So this is all crazy stuff, right? So this happens at 17, then I'm 18, I'm pregnant, and 19, I do get out, like right in the time, right? By the grace of God. So I get out, and now I'm like, okay, well, this life isn't starting out well, right? I got 2 felonies by the age of 19. I'm a single dropout from high school, single mom, dropout high school. Then I'm like, what am I gonna do? I work at Sonic because that was my first job. And there you don't really have to tell them what you did, or they just don't care either way. So I just worked at Sonic, and I was like, I don't know what else to do because I didn't want to tell anyone about my past and what I've done. Obviously, you're not proud of that. And then a year after that, at this point, I'm enrolled in Collin College. I'm working at Sonic. My dad ends up having a severe stroke. He was an alcoholic. He was in ICU for like 30 days. He gets out, and now I'm his caretaker. We live with him. So I'm like, on top of all those things, I'm driving my dad to and from rehab every day in Anna, on top of doing all these other things.
Okay.
So needless to say, I grew up like very fast, there was no choice, you know.
So when you've got this confluence, as they say, of things that have happened in your life, I'm just curious, like when you think back, so your dad's had the stroke, you're trying to come out of 2 felony reality, you're working, trying to, not in a sense hide, but it's like, what do you do? What do you say? When you think about the things you were thinking, like what thoughts were dominating you at that point?
I don't know if there was much thinking at all. It was just doing, right? Because in that point, I just had so much going on. You don't have time to reflect and think about your life. You're just doing what you have to do to get by, right? I have to take care of my baby. I have to take care of my dad. I got to go to work. Now I'm in school. Like, I'm just doing. There's not like a major thought. The only thought was, what am I going to do as a felon, right? Like, as soon as I come out, like, because you're literally like a leper. Like, nobody, you know, like, you can't go get a normal job. You can't be at a normal corporation with felonies. It's just not a thing, you know?
But it's interesting that you say it that way. What am I going to do as a felon? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about people that have had that as a struggle. I mean, that is a major limiting belief of what, in a sense of it's going to be a hindrance. In our mind, we can think it to be a hindrance for the rest of our life. Yeah. Okay, so what were your next steps? I know when we chatted, you talked to me a little bit about like a not so great relationship, and and not that you have to get into super big detail about that, but I think that relationship was really important in the overall development of who you have become. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when my daughter was about 3, I did get a different job. Somebody from my church gave me this job. I was working at a mapping and marketing company. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I felt so great because it was like a real job. I was like, it's my first real job, and I feel good. So, but in that, like, I met this guy, and he was older, well established, and he swept me off my feet, wanted to do all these things for us. About like 6 months into the relationship, he didn't want me to work anymore. And I'm 23 years old, and I'm thinking, wow, like, this is great. Like, this guy wants to do everything for us. He doesn't want me to work. Like, okay, perfect. So I quit my job, and my one good job that I had. And then that was like
a catalyst,
7-year nightmare, like back in, like, all the power and control. That's why he wanted me to quit my job, which is usually a thing, but I don't know that. I'm 23, and I'm thinking, what am I gonna do as a felon, right? So, so I quit my job. I'm with this guy, and it's bad. He's abusive a lot emotionally and financially, but then at one point he was abusive physically too. So when he was abusive, he choked me, and I did call the police, and we went through the whole thing. But it's really hard. Like, that getting away from a relationship like that is awful, because everyone wants to be like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? I'm a strong person. I've always been that way. I would have never seen myself in a relationship like that, not in a million years. But it's little by little over time, and the things that they do to your mind and make you feel like you need them. You can't ever be anything without them. You're never going to be anything.
Okay, so I want to make sure that we highlight that. The things they do to your mind, and then you just said something that you would never be anything without them. Is that what you said? That, has anybody here ever experienced something like that? Okay, so I've seen a couple of head nods on that. That I think that's an important piece of understanding, like, when we aren't, because you said you weren't thinking a whole lot, right? But this is before him. You were just trying to do all the things. And that then he comes in, and now it's also impacting your mind as well. And you also said something that didn't come up in our original conversation, which is, he says, I want you to quit your job. I want to take care of you. And you're thinking, what can I do as a felon? Right? So that thought was in the early stages of that relationship. Okay, so share what you did to, like, break free from that relationship, because there are going to be people who potentially hear this, or it's going to be shared with someone that their friend knows they're in that place, and they're going to want to know, okay, what can I do? So share what you did.
Okay. So when he did choke me, I did have a church group. I had a good support system. I think that's really important for anyone in life, right? Having a good support system, mentors, people you can go to. Well, this one lady from my church she was a CASA something, and she went to this thing, and she met the lady that founded this program in McKinney. It's called Stronger Women. Back then it was Stronger Than Espresso. And it's a program.
I remember that.
It's a program that helps women that have been in an abusive relationship. It doesn't even necessarily have to be with a man. Like, it's a great program for anyone that's dealt with abuse in any type of way. And so that was kind of the catalyst that planted the seed. And I'd like to say I went to that one class, and then I was changed forever, and I never went back to him. That's not how these relationships work. I went back to him multiple times, right? It's really hard. Here I was literally living my best life on the outside, in, like, Frisco, and we had all these fancy vacations. He bought me like a $120,000 Mercedes he had made for me. Just all these things, where then I'm going home to my dad's house. That's really ghetto. Like, it's not ghetto, but it's just kind of like not a nice house. It's 2 beds, 2 baths. I'm sharing a room with my daughter. We're poor. Like, this is the different lives, right? And I'm like, how can I provide this for her? Like, in my mind, I was thinking I was doing my best, because I can't give her a life where she can do all these great things. So anyway, we do this for 7 years, and then it's like, finally the breaking point was, actually, this is an important part. So out of Stronger Women, Brooke introduced me or referred me to Shiloh Place.
Yes,
Okay,
that's right.
So I don't know if you ladies are familiar with Shiloh Place, but it's for single moms. What they do is they help you get on your feet. So they provide you an apartment, they pay for your child care and some type of education. The goal is for you to be financially or independent, right? And it's the most amazing thing. That changed our lives. Like both of those programs and the people that led us there, like it's just so important that, I don't know, that I'd say that because like
it changed the trajectory of your life. Because
100%.
what was your educational focus while you were at Shiloh Place?
Real estate, which was really surprising that they let me do it because real estate is not a very, most people don't make it. I think it's like 87% or something don't make it past 2 years in real estate. It's crazy. So, but they believed in me and that's what I was telling you. So it wasn't even like my brother made good money. He could have paid for these things for me, but it wasn't even like that. It was like, they actually believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. When I've had all these life things happen to me and I just don't think I can do anything, it was their belief in me that was more than anything. And it was nice because it was like we had this little apartment and it was our first place on our own, right? So there were good times at Shiloh Place and I got my, well, I went through the school and then I had to wait like a year to get my license because they don't just give real estate license to every felon, all right? I'll just put that out there. So I had to have tons of letters of reference and just, over a year's time, I had to, go back and forth with them. I really wanted it, obviously, and I just felt like that was what God was leading me to do. And obviously I was right because it's worked out pretty well.
So I want to, again, keep this thread going, that thought of what can I do as a felon that, led to maybe, entering into a relationship that felt like, okay, this could be an answer to that challenge. Yeah. And then coming out of that, I just, I teared up just hearing you say it again. You said it when you and I connected before, which is that Shiloh, they believed in you and like how, like deeply that affected you. Yeah. So I just think that the value of how we can infuse belief in other people.
Yes.
Makes such a big difference. Okay, so you got your real estate license.
Yes.
As a felon.
As a felon.
High five.
Woohoo! So I could do something. Yay!
Well, but again, that was a victory, right?
Oh,
Of breaking down that thought process that you had of what can I do? Right. That there is hope, to use your word when you started. There is hope where that is concerned. Okay, so you got your real estate. I know Shiloh Place allows you to stay for a year. What happened after that?
Okay. They actually let you stay for 2. But
Oh, good. Okay.
So I leave there and, I'm still trying to get my license, still like waiting on the deal to go through or whatever. And then I finally get it. And I'd like to say it was an overnight success, but you heard how hard real estate is. It is, and I knew it going into it. I didn't have any faults, but it was even harder than I thought because I sold 1 house my first year. 1, right?
So hard.
But I mean, that's the reality of it, right? Like it's hard to get going. And at that point, I didn't network. I didn't know any of the things I know now, right? So I sold that house, but I knew, again, I was like, this is God's plan for me. I know it. I'm sticking with it. So that second year, I ended up making pretty good money, way better money than I ever thought I would have made, right? And then the third year, I broke like 6 figures. And then from there, like I tripled my income the next year. It was just crazy. Like it's just been like this crazy, only explanation's God, right? Only explanation that any of this has happened is God led me. God put these people, these organizations in my path and has led me to where I'm at. But I wasn't done with that guy, so we got to go back to him.
Oh, goodness.
Lord. Okay, so I did go back to him when I thought I was making money. I was like, maybe if I'm making money, like it'll be better. Different. Maybe that was the issue. And I mean, obviously there's good times, right? So you say all the bad, but in every relationship, there's good things too, So anyway, I go back to him for a while, but it was like right before I was about to turn 30. We were even contracted on a house, like together, because I was like, I don't want to live in that house. That we have all these memories in Frisco, and I wanted to live like where my people are. So I was like, we contracted on a house, but I was like, no, I can't do it. It was the same stuff happening over and over.
Okay.
He said he was supportive of my career, but he really didn't want me to be successful. He wanted the financial like hold
Control.
on me. Yeah, for sure. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm about to turn 30. I'm not giving him another decade of my life. But when I did that, I knew it was going to be awful, and it was, because he tried to sabotage our lives in any way possible. He went to my broker, tried to get me fired, reached out to all of my like work affiliates and just told them lies and all these bad things about me. My manager even tried to get my license taken from the real estate commission. Just everything he could do to try to sabotage me because he wanted me to need him financially, right? But I didn't give up.
So you told me that you felt like this was another key place in your life where God was really directing you.
Yes.
So
Oh, yeah.
share with the audience what you heard there.
Yeah, so there was a lot of praying in those times and the craziness and everything, but I would always hear God tell me, if you let go of him, I'm going to bless you with more than you can imagine. And it's very hard being in that situation because I'm like, okay, so I'm letting go of this and I'm going over here and I'm just supposed to trust. It's scary, right? And this was before I started making good money. So, but I was like, I know I have to. I don't want, my daughter's getting older. I would never in a million years want her to be in this situation. I'd never want her to, be with someone that, this was what was going on. So it was really, she was watching and I was just like, I can't continue to do this dysfunction.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, let's think about this thread. You were pregnant with her and you had that moment of things have to change in my life. And you said she was a saving grace for you.
Yes.
And now here we are, fast forward years later, and you're thinking, my daughter is getting older and I would never want her to be experiencing what I'm experiencing relationally.
Right.
And so here she is yet again being a strong motivator for you, really letting go of that toxicity completely.
Right.
Fair statement.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you did step away. You went back to your dad's, right? And maybe some of those amazing things that God did do in your life. Because when you were sharing it with me, I was like, wow.
Yeah. So I stayed at my dad's and I was there probably like another year before I ended up getting an apartment, which as a felon, you can't get an apartment either. I don't know if y'all know that. Like you cannot live places, you can't work places. It's like you're doomed to fail. So I luckily, since it had been so long since I'd had these felonies, I ended up getting an apartment with another single mom, and our daughters were friends on the softball team. So it was actually really helpful at that time, right? We just helped each other with kids and everything else. Well, we were there for a year, and in that year, I just felt God pushing me to get a house. I knew I wanted a house eventually. You sell them, of course you want one, right? So I just felt that nudge, and I was like, I was scared because I'm like, this is a commission job. You're highs and lows and all kinds of things, and I just started making money. But I did listen, and I went and I picked out, and I had put it on my vision board and everything. So vision boards are important, y'all. But I put the community I wanted, I put the house I wanted, the builder, the car I wanted, all these things. All that stuff happened in that year, in 2020, right when things were very, very, nobody knew what was going on, but I got a really good deal on my house because nobody was buying right then.
Right.
And I was like, but God's telling me to buy, and this is weird, but I'm going to listen. And sure enough, I was like, thank God I did listen, right? So I go and I'm like, I'm thinking I'm going to have to do a FHA loan, put 3.5% down, whatever. God blessed me in that summer. I made 20% down in 1 month that I
For
just
your house?
put down on my house.
Wow.
Because I was like, oh, look, I just made this. I should put this on my house. So it was like, that's incredible. That's more money in 1 month than I would have ever imagined making in a year in my life, because of all the things I've been through, right? So it was incredible, and I don't know, that was just the beginning. And then it's just gotten better and better, and I've been kind of in a coasting. I haven't been I guess, trying to do better, because I've been like, whoa, I just got to relax for a minute, right? Because look at my life. I've never had the chance to just like, not that I'm relaxing, I work hard, but it's not like you have to grind constantly, or hustle constantly. Because I was like, I had time in that season where I actually evaluated my life. I reflected, and I went to some hard places with myself, and I feel like that was so needed for the next chapters of my life for going forward. I dealt with a lot of my stuff.
So you mentioned mustard seed belief.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, because when I put that stuff on that vision board, I wasn't real sure. You know what I mean? I was like, this is a stretch. Like, maybe these things will happen. We'll see one day. But like, did I expect it all to really happen in that year? No, not at all. And would I ever have imagined where I am today out of that? No, never. But it was because my faith, because of the people that God put in my life, and just go and keep pushing forward. Like, you can't stay there. You can't stay stuck. That's not going to do anything for you.
So someone who's listening, my whole podcast is called Thinking That Matters, right? Mm-hmm. For someone who's listening, whether they have a past that includes felonies or not, maybe it's something different for them, it's this secret that they hold, that they feel like if people know this about me, that it's going to keep me from doing the things that they want to do. Like, if you had to give some key anchoring thoughts that now that you have reflected, you've gone to the hard places, like, what would you share with our audience? Like, what are some of the thinking that matters for you that you are anchored to?
Well, the thinking that matters is overcoming your limiting beliefs. You mentioned that earlier, and you mentioned about a felon is how I labeled myself, because that is what I am, right? So I had that in my head, and that's why I thought, oh, this is the path I have to take, because what am I going to be able to do? You have to really be intentional about what you're saying to yourself.
Yes.
And we all have limiting beliefs. Even now today, I still have them. They're different ones, but I don't care about being a felon anymore. I did care about sharing it. I would tell people I was in a lot of trouble, but I would never say that I was a felon, until more recently. But God's wanting me to share this. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to trust God and share this, because this is a lot and I don't really like it. But yeah, so what you're telling yourself is so important, right? Overcoming those limiting beliefs and just having that little bit of faith. Like, maybe I can do this, but just put it out there. See what happens. And then another thing I do want to say is just one of my favorite quotes is that Henry Ford quote, right? Like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
That's right.
And that is so true, right? Like, it's all in your mind. There's no reason that you can't do whatever goals or whatever you have set for yourself. And this is only the beginning for me, right? Like, I said yes to a plumbing opportunity. And I was like, weird. But God put it in my path, and I thought that's what we were supposed to do. And I'm really excited about it now. Like, it's weird that I'm so excited about plumbing, but it's also like, that's something we could sell. We can sell that business. As a real estate agent, I'm only as good as my last sale. You can't really sell your book. If you do, it's not really worth a lot, because they want you, right? So it's like thinking bigger, believing bigger, and then getting outside of your comfort zone and just kind of expanding that. And part of that's being around people that believe in you. Being around people that speak the life into you, your coach, your friends, whoever that is, but you have to keep striving and going.
I did that on purpose.
Did I preach?
That's right. That was so good. Okay. Let me get myself back under control. That was so good. So good. So what we say to ourselves matters. We have to get rid of the limiting beliefs. And I love how you said, think bigger. Mm-hmm. Think bigger. And then just go out and do something about it. Mm-hmm. Because all of those things on your vision board did come to reality. And I've been in your home. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And your daughter is growing into a lovely young woman as well. Mm-hmm. Under your care. Well, I am super grateful for you. Let me look at my time. Okay, good. All right, for those of you who are here, what questions do you have or comments that you would want to make? And I want to make sure that, you can edit that out, Jane. Love Jane. So what questions or comments do you have? Yes.
What's on your dream board this year?
Okay, so what's on your dream board this year?
Man, I usually start with a word, right? Like a word of the year. My word is becoming. And there's a lot of becomings, but it's main thing is becoming who God wants me to be, right? And all these things, discipline, focus, all these things Elizabeth's trying to help me with. But that's my big word of the year. And then as far as I do love to travel. That's one of my things, but this is a less traveling year. I'm not saying I'm not going on any vacations, but we're building a company, right? So
Right.
I'm having to go backwards. Brittany's helping me with budgeting. It's not my favorite word or thing to do, but so
Becoming a budgeter.
Yes. So budgeting, savings is on there. Savings goal is on there, and then I want to double the amount of families I help while starting a successful plumbing business,
That's
all at
awesome.
once. Because why not?
That's a great question. I love it. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, given the upbringing that you had and the difficulties that you went through, where did you find God in your life? What happened that caused that to become the thing that you needed to get you where you are today? Because a lot of people never find that.
Yes. Well, I did grow up going to church, right? So I did know God. Not really like in the best way. My parents would just drop us off for a babysitter, I feel like. But then when I was in all that trouble and when I was in jail and like as soon as I got pregnant with my daughter, I knew that was, that's where the relationship came in. But I also had an amazing mentor after I got out of jail. It's my best friend's mom who has an incredible testimony herself. But I started going to her life group. And that's really where, and I said those people that were around me were so important in that time, the life group. And then just growing out of that, we went to that same church forever until just recently we moved to a different church. But yeah.
That's awesome. Anybody
I think
else?
it's important to note that, and I'm not religious, so, and yes, you had mentors and you had all these people that are helping you, but at the end of the day, like, you did that. Like, you actually put that work forward and put your mind to something, and don't give too much credit to other people. don't forget that you actually put you where you are now.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm not gonna, yes, I did put in the work.
Right.
That is 100% accurate. I didn't just float my way here, for sure. Thank you.
Brittany?
I love your story. I admire you. What would be, like, if you had somebody who came to you in your life and they were going through hard times, or you saw someone going through hard times, like, what would you tell them from someone who has faced adversity? Like, what advice would you give them? Because I think we've all gone through struggles, right? And some of them are out in public and some of them aren't. But as someone who is trying to voice that and be that person for others, what advice would you give someone? Because we all go through it, right? But coming from someone who has been through it and been vocal about it, yeah, what would you tell them?
I think I would just say, just keep pushing, right? You can't give up and you can't sit there. You can't, whatever's happened, and I'm hoping that this hasn't happened to a lot of people, it's just as big to them in their head as my stuff is to me, right? So my story is crazy and there's all these wild things that have happened in there, but whoever's going through whatever, that obstacle is just as big in their head for them as mine were for me. So life is going to continually happen. There's never going to be a time where it's just easy for the rest of your life. There's seasons and you're like, okay, this is going too good. What's going to happen soon? You know what I mean? And that's bad to think that way, but you do, because you're like, But, there's going to be seasons and there's going to be things, but I think, again, just having the right people around you when you are going through it. And you have to be vulnerable and you have to open up to people to allow them to help you, right? Finding that mentor or whoever it was. If I didn't have Susan, my best friend's mom, I wouldn't be here either, because she kind of, she had felonies too, and she got into real estate. She sells new homes. I literally followed in her whole footsteps. And I mean, kind of different. We sell real estate different, but it's the same. So I'm like, if I didn't have somebody showing me she did it as a felon, you know what I'm saying? Like, finding the right people that you look up to and then just kind of imitating it.
That's actually, I think, an important thing that you just said. Like, when we lack vulnerability, it's harder to find those people that can be difference makers. Because until we're willing to share, hey, this is, like in the same way that you're sharing your story and someone may hear it and reach out and go, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you to know what are some steps that I could take as an example. But if we're not willing to be vulnerable, it's harder to know either who we should connect with or for other people to know that they're not alone in in the struggle. So I'm so grateful. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and to share your story. And I would encourage you, the listener, that take the things that you've heard from Angela, pick 1 to 2 areas that you've heard and truly choose to reflect on them and to determine how you could incorporate them into your life. Because remember, when you cultivate thinking that matters, you can live a life that matters.